Welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason. Today I got a thought for you on what I consider to be probably one of the greatest experiences I ever had to teach me the laws of nature and of nature's God as I look back on it. And that is working for the ANASAZI program when I was a kid for a couple years. ANASAZI, for those of you that don't know, they also work with the Arbinger Institute, which is, I believe their original philosophy was kind of started by Terry Warner, and if I'm not mistaken, also Zeke and Pauline had a major influence on that. Sanchez, Pauline is a Navajo lady with a lot of the traditional upbringings and a lot of the awareness of the Hojal way and what have you. That I highly recommend, for example, Wally Brown, Navajo Traditional Teachings. Pauline posts some stuff on that, but he's more that's kind of one of his go-tos, is he does it every week. And while there's some things that they probably disagree on, teachings wise, what the traditions are of the Navajos, and Pauline always taught us about this, that there was some disagreement on some of the aspects of the history and the meanings of some of the words. Overall, the concepts are the same. I highly recommend it. And I know that Zeke and Larry did a lot of work with BYU. Larry Dean Olson. They originally had some kind of program where kids who were looking at being taken out of BYU for having bad academic performance, I should say students, not kids, they're adults at that point, were told, hey, if you go through this program for the summer or something like that, that we'll go ahead and let you stick in the program with BYU. And what BYU had was, it was a wilderness survival course. So Larry, I think his brother Richard worked with him a lot back in the day, early on. And Larry brought up his whole family doing this kind of stuff. All these guys were quite skilled. At bow drill fires, hand drill fires. Actually, Dave Holliday kind of revived the hand drill fire thing, as I understand it. First time I met Dave Holliday, I was watching him just doing this bad to the bone bow drill fire while he's like in his sandals made from like yucca or something like that, and his spindles like up to here, and he's standing there comfortably just making a fire for everybody. Dave Westcott and those guys, they're all old school. But the program, that BYU Wilderness Survival program that would allow kids to get off of academic probation and get back into the school, was an interesting something, because just the pure lessons of living out in nature, they found were some of the best lessons they ever got. At one point, some psychologists or something like that came in and started saying, hey, why don't we throw in some little jumping off of log activities and some of this that'll build up their experience. And they found that it was actually ruining the experience, because just the pure survival of it was what was really needed to go on. And so this is the laws of nature and of nature's God, if you think about it, when you're out in the middle of nowhere. So, when I was a kid, we were in the Cherry Creek area a lot, mostly actually at first in the Verde River area between Camp Verde and something like Horseshoe Reservoir or Bartlett. I don't know, something way down there. We went up to the top of the Matazels one time. That was a lot of fun. We were in the West Clear Creek area for a decent amount of time. The Baghdad area, that was awesome. I loved being out there too. And I know that they've done other areas. Those are just the ones that I'm the most, that I remember the best. And by the way, Brent Hossman, he was awesome. He was Larry Olson's son-in-law. He was my neighbor down the road, and took me under his wing a lot of times, kind of, because I was kind of a rebellious kid, right? And that's part of what got me into ANASAZI, was going through the program, and I loved it. It was amazing. So anyhow, what they found is just being out there was an important experience. Then you get the Terry Warner type thing, or the Arbinger Institute type of thing. So one thing that was unique about the program is they required that parents participate, and if they weren't willing to participate, as I understand it, then they weren't allowed to send their kids through it, because in general, what they figured out was what tended to happen a lot of times is the parents who were sending their kids out had some of the best intentions, some of the best, most loving parents in so many ways, but there had developed what they would call a sort of collusion, or a sort of being in the box with each other. It's not always 100% true, I guess. Probably, it's an overgeneralization, but it's a concept that then when you think about it, allows you to change the way you see other people, right? So basically, the being in the box is the constant need to find an excuse to poke at the other one, right? I think a lot of this, it comes from the rebelliousness of the kids, but then also a tendency of the parents to want to just control their kids excessively in an overly controlling way. Maybe, I don't know. You got to look at the Arbinger Institute stuff. So they got some great books I highly recommend. The Anatomy of Peace, The Outward Mindset, and Leadership and Self-Deception. I haven't listened to any one of those 3 books in a while, but I've been through them each like 3 or 4 times. Fantastic. Whenever I'd find myself going around teaching guitar lessons and feeling like I was starting to turn too bossy with my students or something like that, because it happens from time to time if we're not careful with ourselves, you guys, I would say, you know what, I'm about due for listening to some Arbinger books. And it would just start straightening me out real fast, because I'd be like, okay, I'm sitting here working with a person who has their own mind, their own thoughts. And if you believe in my religion, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have a premortal existence, a purpose for which they were put on this earth, a specific mission a lot of times, a value. The worth of souls is great in the sight of God. And if all we're trying to do is exercise compulsion and coercion, I'm thinking of Doctrine and Covenants 121, or virtue and charity, and charity is that sincere love of Christ is what it is. Which, that's interesting, because how did Christ love people? Well, he corrected at times, but he also loved. So it says when they're reproving times with sharpness, then showing forth an increase of love, that's they esteem you to be your enemy, right? This is an important part, see that person as valuable. Don't hesitate to correct, because you're in your box with them too if you're just like overly submissive and let them do whatever they want to, right? That's not good. That does nothing for them. However, too, if all you're doing is seeing them as an object to be controlled, right, and aggressively bossing them around and everything, that's not good either, right? One of the examples I remember from an Arbinger seminar that I went to is how many times you stuck driving down the road, somebody's going slow in front of you, 3 or 4 miles under the speed limit, perfectly legal. They're a person, they're allowed to make that decision. And yet you just, they're the worst person in the world. They've committed the greatest offense against all things you can ever imagine. They're not a person in your mind at that point, right? They're an offender, right? What you'll find, I remember some things I remember is, okay, so Nathan Olson, I highly recommend, by the way, if you want to watch the best season of Alone, watch the one that was done in Africa recently, period. And it's because of Nathan Olson, the son of Larry Dean Olson. He's basically a year older than me. I was in class with him, but he's, he was such a quiet, mellow, talented guy. But anyhow, then I actually got to know his brother Enoch and his brother Josh more than him. But I always had total respect for Nathan. And after watching that season, it's the same thing. He talks a lot about the lessons you learn on the trail. How his mom Cheryl one time was putting up, there's hardly any clouds in the sky. She's putting up a shelter, and he's not. And sure enough, in the middle of the night, and this is the worst when it happens, and it's happened to all of us that have some of that kind of personality, that overconfident personality. You wake up, there's clouds overhead, it's raining down on you, it's too late to put on a shelter, and stars and moon are all blocked by those clouds. Good luck scrambling to put up a shelter now, right? But his mom, he's like, my mom was so smart, she had already put up a shelter just from seeing a little bit, right, or whatever, and he hadn't, And these are the kind of lessons you learn out there. You learn to carefully go through your food. Really, they give you enough food to live off of, as long as you're supplementing it with a certain amount of roots or leaves, or because they're teaching wilderness survival while they're at it. But I was out there 89 days when I was a kid, so it's a really long-term program. And you learn too that whatever food you do have, everybody else is just as hungry and they'd like an easy meal. And if you make it easily accessible to those that are desperate, they're going to take it. Maybe not necessarily. There's some that have more self-control, but you're putting an unfair temptation in their way. And I think this is an important thing for us to understand as Americans. What made our founding fathers so important is they took away that unfair temptation from government. They said, we're safeguarding, we're securing, we're putting everything kind of in a secure, hidden spot. We're going to see you if you're going for our freedoms, right? And it's not just about all our freedoms because we're more important than them. It's because it's also not good for them. You put an unfair temptation on them that they can barely resist, right? They can resist it. Joseph of Egypt resisted, right? But I'm pretty darn sure the way you read that story, at some point it was getting really hard for him. That's part of what makes him so awesome compared to, say, for example, David, you know. There's laws of nature and of nature's God. And if you get out there and you learn about putting up your shelter, getting good at... Okay, so like during the rainy season, we learned early on, carry extra tinder bundle with you in your bags. Carry dry spindles and fireboards, right? In baggies if you can. Something. So that basically when you get to your new camp, right, you're not like scrambling for some kind of tinder bundle where everything's wet. And yes, there are places, little trick, wilderness survivalist trick, as long as the waters haven't flooded up to the highest point where they've ever flooded in the past, you can go by a creek and find where there was a bunch of old driftwood, reach into the middle of the driftwood, pull out typically some nice dry roots still in the middle of all that. It works okay, it's not great. But if you're not camped by a creek, if you're camped by a spring or something like that, you're out of luck. So you learn to prepare. You learn to go through your food in a measured way. You learn to eat your food healthily, or else you suffer the consequences. That's all there is to it. And you learn not to put too much temptation in front of others. You learn to not see others as objects. You're all out there living together. There's no government. The only government is everybody, right? And then the parents have to participate. The parents come out and they spend, a little bit of time with the kids. The kids also do what's called a solo camp out. I think the show alone got a lot of its inspiration from it. But anyhow, I just wanted to talk about that, the laws of nature and nature's God. I highly promote also the program, the ANASAZI program, the Arbinger Institute. So as constitutionalists, we don't need to see the violators of the Constitution as objects to be controlled, just to control them. We need to correct things because right is right and wrong is wrong. If we take away that temptation for them to just keep doing whatever they want, right? That's actually good for them too. It's good for us, it's good for them, right? We say, now we're not going to be easy to be, we know what the powers are granted in the Constitution, what they aren't. We know what the prohibitions are in the Constitution, what they aren't. We know what the promises guaranteed. And by the way, written words mean things. It's part of the laws of nature and nature's God that words mean things, right? And so when words mean things and someone like me studies the Constitution and says, wait, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? I can either feel intimidated, demeaned, and stupid because I don't agree with the Supreme Court, or I could say, look, I'm not buying into a lie. It's not good for you for me to buy into that lie, and it's not good for me. Let's stop playing these silly games with words. They mean what they mean. That's all. Period. Okay, the Supreme Court was not granted. It was intended by some of the founding fathers at the framing convention to have the Supreme Court become the final arbiter of the meaning of the Constitution. Didn't make it into the document. Didn't meet the threshold to make it into the document. That document was pretty much unanimous by the time. They were very careful about what they put in there, So I think that we got to get out in nature. We got to look at people as people with particular gifts. Even if they've, annoyed us, they seem... And by the way, one of the worst things you can do for society is to start separating things out by race. I'm just going to say it, you guys. If you start seeing it as though all white people owe something to all Native Americans, or all white people owe something to all black people, or this or that, you're already in your box with them, man. You just are. That's the truth. And it makes it really hard. That was one of the things about 2020 that was so hard for me. When I was younger, I lived with a Navajo family for a couple years. I spoke Spanish fluently before I went on my mission because I hung out with so many Mexican dudes. I didn't go on my mission until I was 25. I was kind of rebellious, like I said. I want to be rock star and stuff. And, I came from a family that wasn't 100% white, you could say, right? Mexican cousins, in-laws, things like that. To call me a racist was just, or white privilege or this or that. I'm like, my dad's from South Phoenix, man. What are you talking about, white privilege, dude? Anything he accomplished it because he accomplished it, dude. That's all. Ain't no silver spoon in our family or whatever you say, right? It just wasn't. It was really hard because then it'd be like hanging out in the grocery store, and where it used to be the most natural thing in the world for me to just chit chat with people of different races and stuff, I began to feel like this weird kind of self-consciousness. Not cool. Not cool. Okay? So, anyhow, that's my thoughts is, think about it. The Constitution's ingenious the way it's set up. It doesn't guarantee a good economy, by the way, you guys. It just guarantees an honest economy. Weights and measures, the Commerce Clause regulation, honest regulation. Nobody owes you anything. General welfare means things like that, literally an honest economy. That is for the general welfare, the honest economy. Not the thriving economy, not the redistribution of wealth. That was never the point. Jefferson said we would have been the most honest and virtuous people if we would be an agrarian society. And having been through programs like ANASAZI and having homesteaded and things like that, and no, I'm not perfect at any of it. I don't have the cool advantages of guys like Nathan Olson who, I don't know, their dad and their grandpa and everybody else carried on this tradition or whatever, So there's a lot of weird learning curve stuff for me. I married into a family with a lot of the tradition like that, fortunately, so that helps. But get out in nature. Don't see people as objects. Look at what the Constitution actually allows. Think about then, too, what are the proper things for even state governments to get involved in? I highly recommend studying H. Verlin Anderson's books. That's solid doctrine, you guys. That's solid doctrine. He was an elder of the church. Also, The Proper Role of Government by Ezra Taft Benson. He was pen pals with H. Verlin Anderson, but H. Verlin Anderson had a really good way of wording it. He was a BYU law professor, a member of the Utah Congress, that kind of thing. So, anyhow, that's my thoughts. I really think that America could use an Arbinger Institute, and it could use the ANASAZI program. We could have used it before the Civil War, honestly. We could have used it, Anyhow, we inherited bad traditions, and we're working our way out of them little by little. That's all there is to it. So, again, ANASAZI and the Arbinger Institute. That's my thoughts, you guys. Thanks for listening. Sorry for the kind of rambling and the sick voice. I'm still sick, but getting better. See ya.